First, you'll need to create a new project. It's a bit slow, but here it is. And I'm going to create the background as a for the maze, for the playing area. You could use a sprite, but I find sometimes if you use a sprite, it moves when you're trying to edit the program. So this is the paint palette. I'm going to use a square here, and you can see two options, the outline and the fill. Well, I'm going to do a big maze, or actually I'm going to do just a plain rectangle. Keep it simple. I can add more complications later on. So I'm just making a rectangle. Here I can make the width of the line a little bit bigger. So I did undo, made it wider, and now I'm going to make my character move. Now it's very important to understand that in the Scratch playing environment, you have an x-axis across, which goes from 240 down to minus 240, and the y-axis up and down, from 180 down to minus 180. So x is across, remember that. Now I don't want this cat character, so I'm going to bin it. And instead I'm going to do a simple square. So I'm going to paint a new sprite. And this time I don't want an outline. I just want a fill. So I'm going to make a plain red shape with no outline. Now to make a precise square, I'm holding the shift key down, which keeps the proportions of the square and stops it being a rectangle. It's a bit big, so I'm just going to half the size. Actually, I might quarter the original size here by making it 25%. And now it's a more manageable size in relation to the playing environment. So here, this is how you get into the code area. And first I want when flag clicked. Okay, this green flag starts all my scripts. Now, this is the smoothest way of making movement. There are slightly easier ways, but I think you really want a forever here. And what I'm going to do is forever, if a certain key is pressed, I'm going to work with the X and Y coordinates. So I'm going to start with going right. Okay. And when the right key is pressed, I'm going to increase the X coordinate. Alright, so change X by. Now that number 10 might work out a little bit fast, so I'm going to drop it down to 5. Just remember to change the key. So when right arrow key pressed, change Y by 5. It's going to keep changing the Y constantly, but it's going to move through any outline that I have. Here I've got a plain pink outline. It's not really a maze, but you can make it into a bit more of an interesting maze. Whatever your maze looks like, you don't want it to go through the maze. So, if touching maze, so if sensing, and this is going to be based on the colour. If I click on this and use the eye droplet, I can select that exact colour. So, if touching that pink colour, then what happens? Well, I'm going to change the X by minus 5 to cancel out the movement. But look how I've got the if touching colour within the if key right pressed. That's important. Okay, so now it will cancel out the movement back to 0 if it's touching the colour pink. Now, this is probably the most complicated part of the whole program, this movement, but it does make nice, smooth movement. Now, to make the other keys move in the other directions, what I'm going to have to do is change a few things. So to make left is easy, but to go up and down, you'll need to think about changing the Y coordinate. So I'm going to leave that with you and see if you can do that. Now I'm going to go on and create the baddies. So I've gone in to create a sprite and I'm again holding the shift key here to make a little blue circle. In fact, I'm going to make that slightly smaller. Let's make it about 60% of the size there. Now, the blue circles, the baddies, are going to move up and down, I think. So, what I need to do is think. Glide is going to be a way of making them move smoothly for 1 second between an X and Y coordinate and to another place. So this glide is moving to a spot. So notice that when I put the blue circle in a place, that coordinate goes onto the movement block. So here, I'm starting at one place, gliding to another place, and then going back to where it started off. Okay, so that's a good start, but I want it to keep moving. If you've played the game, you see how the ball keeps moving. So here, I'm going to do a forever. Now, it will keep moving throughout the gameplay. Alright, now I want more than one ball. So I right-clicked, duplicate, and they've got the same commands now, so they're going to start on top of each other, so I need to change that. On the second sprite, the second ball at least, I'm going to change the coordinates that it's moving between. Okay, I'll let you have a go at this, but remember that the where you put the ball, the coordinates of that spot will move to the motion blocks. If you remember that, that will help you remember to use glide and remember to think about where you want the ball to begin. Okay, I'll let you have a go at that. Okay, I'm just putting 2 baddies in for the moment. You will want to make some more. Right, what I need now is a start area and an ending area, and then I'm going to have a conclusion to the game where I can win by getting to the end area. Right, so I'm just creating the home area as a green rectangle. And you might find if you create a new sprite that it goes in front of your character. So what I'm going to do is choose when flag clicked. Here I'm coding my main character, Sprite 1, and I'm saying when flag click, go to the front layer, which means that it will always be on top. And it doesn't interact with the baddies at the moment. But what I want is it to go to an end area. So I'm duplicating the sprite. And I just right-clicked on that sprite to get the duplicate option. Just putting them into place now. When I play, you will find that I don't interact with these baddies. I don't go back to the beginning like in the actual game. So here I'm going to, from the start of the game, forever, if touching. Now I'm going to look in sensing down here for if touching, and I'll probably do it if touching color blue. So I'm going to get an if touching color block and choose blue by using that little pipette tool, clicking on the color I want, and it changes to that exact color. So now if touching color blue, I want to return to this spot, and remember how if I put my sprite on that spot, the coordinates go to the move blocks. So, if touching colour blue, go to those coordinates. Test it and it works. Now, whenever I start the game, let's say I'm up here, I want it to actually start back at that spot as well. So I'm duplicating that block to make sure that I go to that spot when flag clicked at the beginning. Okay, so I'm just making a windscreen here. I'm just going to fill the screen with a colour, and I'm just going to choose a text box and say you win in a nice contrasting colour here. And then that is going to come up when I get to the end zone. Don't worry about it going on top of everything else, because I'm going to make it hide at the beginning of the game, and I'm just going to make it show when I get to the end zone. Now I'm just putting it in, and then when you start the game, it's not disappearing, so I've got to make it hide. So I'm going to choose from the start of the game, when green flag clicked, I'm in looks now, and hide, simple as that. So I'm going to have to choose a show at some point. So when's it going to show? Well, this is when I'm using what's called a broadcast message. I'm going to make a new message and call it win. Now, because my main character is touching that green end block, what I need to do is broadcast a message to this third sprite, the windscreen, to then appear. Okay, so this is actually the windscreen end block, this green block here. I should probably call it win area or something like that. And when I clicked on it, I could see it highlighting in the sprites pane there. So what I'm going to have to do is say when my red character, okay, so I'm coding my red character now, when it touches the end zone, that's what broadcasts the message, that win message that I just made. So, from the start of the game, forever, if touching the green end zone, which I've called win area, then broadcast that message win. So if touching win area, broadcast win, and then that, when I receive win, it shows, the windscreen shows. Okay, let's test that. So let's move it along and see what happens when I get to the end zone. You win. Now the only thing I don't like about that is that my character, my red character, is still on top. Okay, so it goes back to the beginning when it touches the blue baddie, and when it gets to the end zone, I'm just going to have to avoid this happening as a finishing touch. I'm just going to make the red square go back behind the layer of the windscreen by choosing here, go back. And I don't know how many layers there are, so I'm just going to pick an amount which is definitely correct. Go back 20 layers, let's say. Just in case I make any more, it's going to go behind the windscreen. So that's your game.